Hi, this is your Hurricane Tracker video update recorded August 20th, 2011 at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Wanted to start today's video with an overview of the systems we are tracking in the far eastern Atlantic and the Atlantic Basin. We have a couple of systems here in the eastern Pacific. We have weakening Tropical Storm Greg, which will dissipate into an open wave within the next 48 hours. An area of interest the Hurricane Center is monitoring is Invest 91E. And right now that has a low chance of development and will be pushing off to the west based on the latest computer model guidance. So neither of these systems will be a threat for the Mexican coastline. Our named system today in the Atlantic is Tropical Storm Harvey, making landfall on the southern coast of Belize today as a strong tropical storm. And we'll take a closer look at Harvey in just a moment. Of course, the main story next week will be Invest 97L here in the western Atlantic. And you can't see it on this map, but just off the edge of this map is Invest 98L. And it's moving into an environment less conducive for development. And right now, development chances are pretty slim as it will be heading off towards the west-northwest and staying in the open Atlantic. And let's start with the only named system today in the Atlantic. That's Tropical Storm Harvey. And here's the location of the storm making landfall on the southern coast of Belize. And it's going to continue to move to the west and dump tons of rain here over Central America. 3 to 6 inches widespread will be common with isolated totals up to 10. So if you live here in Belize, Guatemala, or western Honduras, because of the higher terrain, there is a great chance for landslides. So please pay close attention to what the local officials are saying in regards to the torrential downpours that will be affecting you over the next 24 hours. Here's the official track for Harvey by the National Hurricane Center. Should dissipate to a depression tomorrow afternoon and will not be entering the Bay of Campeche. So if you live along the western Gulf Coast, Harvey will not be a threat to your location. Of course, the main system again is going to be Invest 97L. It is a very large system. It's still a little bit disorganized, but there is a spin. It is trying to get its act together. And here where I placed the X is the general area where we expect a low-level center to develop under this heavier convection that's firing this evening. So, looking at the satellite, it is slowly becoming better organized. It is a very large system, so it's not going to organize as quickly as a smaller system would. Here's the Lesser Antilles, the northern Leeward Islands. It will be crossing your location sometime tomorrow afternoon and evening as a strong tropical wave or weak tropical depression at best. And it's going to be critical as to exactly where the surface circulation develops. If it develops further north, there's a greater chance it could miss a lot of the landmass here in the Caribbean and become a stronger system. And also that's true if the system develops further to the south, then it would track through the northern Caribbean Sea and not have much of an impact from the land masses. But right now, this would be the best case scenario if it would develop in this area. So we'll monitor that over the next 12 to 20 hours to see where the system finally does consolidate. Now, using a lot of data, a lot of computer models, we've put together a cone based on where the center could move. It could move anywhere up through the eastern Gulf of Mexico or east of Florida up into the southeast United States coast. We're fairly confident that by tomorrow evening we'll have a tropical depression here over the Lesser Antilles. And it would be moving very close to the southern coast of Puerto Rico, possibly developing into a tropical storm before crossing Hispaniola with winds of about 45 to 55 miles an hour Monday or Tuesday. As we get into the middle of the week, it should be crossing eastern Cuba, either as a strong tropical storm or weak hurricane. And then once the system emerges off of the northern Cuban coast, there is a chance it could develop into a Category 1 or 2 hurricane. Conditions will be favorable for development, and of course there's very warm water in this location this time of year. A trough of low pressure will be moving south out of the central plains and the Midwest, which will help turn the storm more towards the north and possibly move it up through Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina as we get into next weekend. Now, we showed this map when we did the video for Tropical Storm Emily. The island of Hispaniola is notorious for its high terrain, which does a very good job at disrupting a circulation of tropical cyclones. So again, right now, this is the best estimate as we see the center. If it develops where we think it will, it should move pretty much directly over the higher terrain. And we'll have to see midweek what kind of impact that plays with this system, because the more it can interact with these land masses here in the Caribbean Sea, the weaker it's going to be down the road as it threatens the United States. This afternoon, the tropical models are in fairly good agreement in moving the system west-northwest across the northern Caribbean. And again, most of these models do take it over the highland of Hispaniola, which would be the best case scenario at this time. And all of them move the storm over eastern Cuba and eventually in a general direction of southeast Florida. And again, within this cone, the worst case scenario would be if the storm takes a southerly route well to the south of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, or a northerly route above those locations, because then it would have more open water to work with. But right now, this is the general thinking based on all the latest data, and we'll have to see exactly where that center does form. Let's look at some of the dynamical models, and these, of course, are available as images within the app. But this is the 12Z GFS model, and you can see it develops the storm into a fairly healthy system, moves it just south of Hispaniola up through eastern Cuba, right into South Florida and up the spine of Florida, into southeast Georgia, South Carolina, and into North Carolina. So this is one of the what one of the guidance models shows. Here's another one, the CMC model, which is called the Canadian model. And this one is by far the most southerly and westerly route that we've seen from the models. It shows it passing to the south of Hispaniola over Jamaica as a strong system, over the western tip of Cuba, and into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. And eventually this system has it headed towards the Florida Panhandle. So if you live on the northern Gulf Coast from New Orleans eastward, you cannot let your guard down. There are still a couple of computer models showing this solution. And of course, if you live in Florida, you guys need to be paying very close attention to the future track of this developing system. And even up the southeast United States coast up to about North Carolina, you're still within the threat area. So all of you guys, please pay close attention, as this could become a dangerous situation later next week. Now, one of the most reliable models that typically performs better than the most is the ECMWF, which is the Euro model. And this system, this computer model shows it moving right over Hispaniola up the eastern part of Cuba, and then riding right up the eastern coast of Florida, and eventually up the eastern seaboard. Let me put this in the loop here one more time. Give me just a second here. So here it is on Thursday, moving over the eastern central part of Cuba, and then right up the eastern edge of Florida into about North Carolina and Virginia as we get into later next weekend. Now, the steering forecast for Invest 97L, through the short term, we're very confident this high pressure ridge, which has a clockwise flow around it, will be responsible for pushing it off to the west-northwest. So that we're fairly confident on. The only thing in the short term we're not confident on is whether it's going to go north of the Greater Antilles or south of the Greater Antilles. And as I've showed you, that could have great impacts down the road as it starts turning towards the United States. This high pressure ridge, which has been centered over Texas for many, many weeks, delivering hot weather, is not going to budge. If at all, it'll move to the west just a little bit. But this high pressure ridge will be protecting the western Gulf of Mexico from about Louisiana westward, and the models do not show this breaking down anytime in the next 7 to 10 days. Now, later next week, we're going to have a trough of low pressure coming out of the Midwest, and once the system is in the Northwest Caribbean Sea, it's going to interact with that trough, and it's going to help move it more towards the north and the northwest, either towards the eastern Gulf of Mexico, right up through Florida, or just to the east of Florida. So it's still several days out. A lot of errors could be in the models. We probably really won't know what's going to happen until about Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. So if you live anywhere in the eastern Gulf Coast states or the southeast United States, please pay close attention to the future developments of Invest 97L. And of course, we'll be here to provide frequent audio updates every afternoon, and we'll do another video update if we see conditions really changing with the track of Invest 97L. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Hope you find this video informative. Thanks for being a Hurricane Tracker customer, and have a great day.